This is The Calling, a Family Life original podcast hosted by Steve Smith that features conversations with pastors who share about the triumphs and challenges they face in their personal and professional lives as they share the gospel. Our guest for episode 26 is Pastor Mike Wenger of Lewisburg Bible Church in Lewisburg, Pennsylvania.
Pastor Mike, I always like to start out because every pastor has a different story and God uses all of them. Did you have a specific moment in your life, or was it a gradual calling when all of a sudden you knew you were going to become a pastor? Sudden or gradual?
It's a long story, and I'll try to keep it short. How's that?
That sounds good.
I am a preacher's kid. My father was a pastor all my life. He was a pastor already by the time I was born. He pastored in several churches in Maryland and Pennsylvania. And so I grew up in the church, like a lot of people. And I always said when I was growing up as a little kid, I was going to be a farmer or a pastor. And so obviously I'm not a farmer. So, no. But I did grow up in the ministry, was very active with my parents and things like that. But like a lot of teenagers, I kind of strayed off the path, and I followed what I thought I wanted to do and followed what the devil was telling me was a good idea. And I I really strayed away. I was kind of like the prodigal child. And I know I had discussions with my father and things like that. And in my embarrassment, I told him, if this is religion and this is God, you can keep it. And I believe I was saved at that point yet, but it was a tough time. And so I strayed, even though I went to Bible college, but God wasn't done with me. He worked through circumstances in my life to bring me back to him, to the point where I had nothing left. Everything that I based my life on, a home, a family, whatever it would be, a good income or a steady life. And it was in farming. I thought that was going to work out, and that fell apart. And so I was on the floor crying out to God saying, you have my attention. What do you want me to do now? And so my parents had told me I could come back home here until I got back on my feet. And so we did. My dad was pastoring in a little church in Pennsylvania here. God had my attention. And I came back here, once again, dove into ministry, was helping with some of the sound things in the church. I was also working for a radio station in Jersey Shore here, Light for Life WJSA. And so I was a on-air personality, also did some radio sales for them, things like that. And so God was getting me back. And I had a journey to make. It was a process, but still feeling God's call that he had more for me. I got married. We have children. We were busy in the churches working with youth, and I was a deacon in one of the churches and was helping out there, but still feeling like God had more for me. And so I ended up filling pulpit for when my dad was out of the church that he was pastoring, and we were looking for a new pastor. And I filled the pulpit there, also filled the pulpit in several other churches. And as word got around, people would contact me to fill the pulpit. And I never was looking to become a full-time pastor per se. I just wanted to do what I thought God wanted me to do in helping the churches. And my goal was to just help the church that was looking for a pastor get through as easily as possible and get that process underway and take some of the stress off of the deacons or the elders, the search committee that was looking for a pastor, because I had been on a search committee and knew what that was like. And so as I did that, when I preached to the one church, they asked me if I would be willing to put my name in as a full-time pastor. And so I guess it would be a slow process because we prayed about it. And we did. We put our name in. We did not get that church, and we put our names in several others before we were chosen. And God placed us in Lewisburg Bible Church. And so it was kind of a slow, long process, part of it slowly because of my actions. But in all of that, I believe that God has given me a lot of experiences that I can relate to those who are maybe in that prodigal child process and maybe coming back and trying to find exactly what God has for them, getting through maybe some of the guilt and the pain, looking back and saying, I'm not worthy, just like the prodigal son. I'm not worthy to be called his son. And yet God says we are. And he wants to put us back into the ministry. And it's what we let ourselves be used to do, I believe. And so God has been using us. We've been at Lewisburg Bible Church full time for 3 years. And so that's my story. I've enjoyed the process, not all of it necessarily, but it's been necessary. And just as we were talking on Sunday when I was preaching, that part of that journey, we may not understand why we go through some of the things we do, but God has a plan. We're told all things work together for good. And he has a process. And now that I look at the longer picture, the bigger picture, I can see why some of these things that happen in my life through my children and all the other things that have gone on were there so that I could better help people when I was in the ministry.
Talking with Pastor Mike Wenger of Lewisburg Bible Church here on The Calling. And because of your journey, Mike, how do you approach doubt? And I'm not necessarily talking about yourself because you continue to approach that, but say someone in your congregation who maybe have been attending for a while and they go, you know what, is this whole Bible thing real? Is this whole Jesus thing real? I mean, I have some doubts. As a pastor, how do you approach that?
Very carefully at times. You want to... I try to tread lightly. I don't want to offend that person or shut them off from the truth of the gospel or from the fact that we all have doubts. And one of the good things that one of the parts of the process that I went through was dealing with my own doubt. And even at times doubting still that I am right for the ministry because of all these things in my past. And so we have to recognize, and we go through the scripture with them, and we go back to examples. And I like to use the children of Israel because so many times they failed the God who has called them his special children. They're his chosen people. And so many times he worked miracles, and so many times they failed him and doubted him, and yet God continued to work with them. And we see that all through the Bible of examples where just common human beings, he uses them even in their failures and their doubt. And as we look at that and we see how God keeps supplying or keeps answering prayer, even when it doesn't seem like we would deserve that. And when you look at how he continues to be faithful, and I drew that comparison in Sunday school, the Israelites, as they came out of Egypt and saw all these great miracles and went through the plagues and knew that God was just this awesome God that could do anything. And yet they would fail him over some things. Days later, they would doubt him and want to go back to Egypt or get rid of Moses. And God continued to work with them, and he was faithful. And so it doesn't matter what our feelings or our actions are, because God has promised to be faithful. We serve the same God that the Israelites serve, and he hasn't changed. I change not. And so as you take those examples and you lead people step by step through that, sometimes they don't get it right away, but you just consistently pull other examples up at how God is faithful. And then I can use some of my experience. And then as they start to share with me and say, well, look, you're so deep into the woods, you can't see the woods for the trees. I'm sitting back here and I'm saying, look how God has led you this step and this step. God is still working. He has been faithful. And because of that, as you build more faith and you trust him, your doubt starts to get smaller, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Now, you said you've been through a lot, Mike, and you're able to use that in teaching the word. And now that you've been pastor for over 3 years, anything about people surprise you that you did not expect as a pastor? Anything come to mind?
There's probably been several things. Now, one of the things is being a preacher's kid, I got to watch people for a long time and realize that people's opinion of you can change rather quickly. And even over things that you didn't mean, they might have taken it out of context. They might have taken it the wrong way. And so I try to be careful how I speak, although I don't hold back from preaching the word at all. And if that offends them, then I'm going to have to go through and step by step explain that. But one of the things that kind of surprises me, I guess, still is how we get so easily distracted from the truth of the gospel over little things, and we pick things that are very insignificant to make mountains out of these molehills, and lose the amount of growth we've had, or lose the opportunity to serve because we're so focused on little things. And that's probably one of the things that keeps coming back to me, that I want to be very careful in preaching and presenting the gospel and trying to lead people in the right way, so that the little things don't become big things, that we can focus on him and focus on what's important. And those kind of things are what keep the body of Christ held back so much. And I guess it doesn't surprise me as much as disappoints me that we can't figure out how to get past that. It's still a pride thing, and we've been talking about that in Sunday school there as well, about who we give the authority to. And so many times our pride keeps us from giving the authority to God and letting him call the shots. We want to get on the throne and we want to call the shots. And I guess if it was anything that's surprising in kind of a humorous way, is that people find my examples and some of the things that I use out of my life to be such a big help. And that maybe surprises me about myself, is those things that I thought were so bad that there couldn't possibly be good in it, even though I knew that God promised that there was good. And there's a lot of things that we go through that surprise us in life, whether it's from somebody else or from ourselves, as we react to these things. And I encourage the people, because even with everything I've gone through and knowing how faithful God is, we had a child with cancer and almost lost another one of our children. And God was faithful through all of that, using the people in the churches around us and things to support us. And I still doubt him as well. So they shouldn't feel too bad, because I am still human as well, and have to take time to back up and take time to pray and turn it over to God before I jump off the deep end, so to say.
We're talking with Pastor Mike Wenger of Lewisburg Bible Church, and you've already talked about preaching the Word of God and the truth, and that has to be tough to balance that, because I've heard pastors from both sides balancing the truth, but also teaching God's grace, because God's truth sometimes kind of like jabs us in the stomach a little bit. It's like, ouch, that hurts, but also that grace. That has to be a tough thing to balance those two.
It can be. You don't want to go too heavy on grace, because you don't want to make it sound like God just will accept everything. You want to. I tell people there is a time where God's grace comes to an end. Thank God it won't be in our time, probably. I think we'll be raptured out. But God will come, his grace will come to an end. And even sometimes in our life, Moses is an example where God got angry with Moses as he said, look, I want you to go get my people out of Egypt. And Moses had the audacity to argue with God. And it says God was angry with him. God's patience came to an end, and he did and said, I'll send Aaron, but I'm not happy about this. So in our lives, we can receive God's grace, but to a point, if we keep pushing, I think God will pull us up and discipline us out of grace, because he can't leave us in a place where we need to be out of to serve him better. And so while God is graceful and works with us, and his mercy is unlimited, and he is willing to work with us long after our patience with people would run out, he does have a point where he's going to say, look, I can't keep being gracious and leave you in, whether it's a sin, whether it's a habit, whatever it is that you need to get rid of so you can serve me better. So if you don't want to be in the position where I was, lying on the floor with nothing left, crying out to him, going, you've got my attention, because he will do that if he has to, I would suggest that you surrender to him and listen to him before he has to act in a disciplinary action, because he really likes when we work with him inside of his grace. And it's so much easier when we kind of work with open hands and let God take and give what he wants, instead of hanging on to things and he has to pry them out of our hands. When it gets to the point where he says, look, I can't let you go like this any longer. And so there is that delicate balance. But even in that time of discipline, I believe there's grace in that, because he's saying, I have something much better for you, and I want you to be able to serve me better or be in a better place. And so out of my grace and love for you, I have to discipline you to bring you back. It's kind of like when we spank our children and we say, I love you, and this hurts me more than it hurts you. And they say, yeah, right. We'd say the same thing to God at times. I don't think I believe that at the moment until we look over the journey and we go, oh, wow, that was such a loving and an act of grace to pull me out of this, to put me into a ministry where I can serve others and serve him better.
Pastor Mike Wenger of Lewisburg Bible Church. You're the face of Lewisburg Bible Church, but what is there? You can't do it alone. So what does healthy church leadership look like to you?
I am very impressed. Usually a church has about 20% of its people that do most of the work. Now, we have a very small congregation. We only have about 20, and we're working on building up, and we want to see growth, and we're reaching out in the community. But I was commending the congregation that when I look across the congregation, I can't see a single person that attends regularly that isn't involved in some part of the ministry. And it is so vital. I have a couple of deacons that not only aid in keeping the church going, helping me make the decisions, who are praying constantly that we are seeing and having wisdom far beyond what we can imagine. We need God's wisdom to know how to expand the ministry, what he wants us to do with our limited resources. So our prayer is that we stay a lighthouse in that community until he comes back. And so they help lead and direct. I have a deacon that is 90 years old who has seen a lot of things and is willing to give aid and give advice and isn't afraid to say to the pastor, I don't know if that's a good idea. And that is great. It's crucial because sometimes the pastor gets focused on one thing too much and he needs to be pulled back and to be looking at the bigger picture, or maybe have a deacon or even a congregation, a member say, look, did you mean it this way? Are you focused that much over here? Is that a good idea? And I'm open to all of that. And I like the fact that I have people in the congregation, including my wife, who will say, is that what you meant to say? Are you sure this is the right direction? Because as the pastor, like you said, I'm the face, I'm the head, I'm the shepherd of this flock. But I want to see the people grow. I want to see spiritual growth most of all. I want to see these people equipped to go out and serve into the communities in their everyday jobs and the lives that they have out there at the grocery store when they're shopping, whatever it might be, so that they are able to give an answer, or they are the ones that are smiling. There's something different about them. And if I'm getting off track, if I'm not serving the people and I'm getting so focused maybe on just one thing, even on myself at times, it's crucial to have people in your life that will pull you back and say, I think you need to refocus and make sure we're centered on what's important here, the real thing that's important, not what we've gotten off to the side. And like I said, I'm glad that I have people that are willing to do that. I have told them that they have the right to do that. And then it's my job when they bring those things and they question or have a question or ask if this is what I meant, to humbly look at it and say, okay, I'll take that into consideration instead of, getting defensive. And I work on that, and I have people do that, asking questions and things like that. So it keeps me humble. It also makes me try to keep refocused on God and what's important.
There's plenty of challenges in any church, whether the congregation is 20 like yours at Lewisburg Bible Church or 200 or 2,000. There's certainly challenges. But what excites you, Pastor Mike, about the future of maybe not only your church, but the church in general? What's exciting about the future of the local church?
The most exciting thing, I think, is, and the thing that we are looking to grow in the most, is the young people. That's the future. Whether you look at the young people as the future of America or the future of the church, it's the same thing. And we are looking to grow our youth ministry right now. We are struggling in that area. And so we are looking to get some help in that area of opening up, getting some more young people in with children and things like that. Because what excites me is seeing spiritual growth and seeing lives changed. And we have seen that in our church with some people who had not been going to church for a while, who started attending church. and now are asking questions. We started going using the answers in Genesis. They had been using that. We're going through Genesis step by step, answering some questions and some basic questions that maybe even from some older people that I thought that they would have already known, but we were able to answer those questions. And what's exciting is to see that spiritual growth and see people's eyes light up, excuse me, that the light bulb goes on and they make that connection, how God is working and God has a plan, and God has been from Genesis 1:1 through the end of Revelation. God is in it, and it all points to him, whether it's forward to the cross or back to the cross. We're looking to him. And when the light dawns and they see how God is working, and you see the excitement, and they want to get involved. And we're seeing that, like I said, in our church, we're seeing people, even our older people, are looking for ways to be involved, even though that some of them in their 80s and 90s are still trying to do as much as possible in reaching out into the community of saying, hey, can we help in this area? And that excites me, because that is the future of the church. As we reach out in the community and get the young people in, we need to make that connection with them so that we can see the future of the church and see basically, and the most important thing, lives saved and changed, seeing God's kingdom advanced. That excites me. When I see that, and when I see the growth, and I hear people say, I've gotten to talk to somebody who maybe I didn't talk to in so long, was able to share with them, and now we have a conversation, and now I have a chance to share Jesus with them. That is exciting.
Pastor Mike Wenger of Lewisburg Bible Church, you've talked about your journey, how you went your own path, and then God brought you back. What would Pastor Mike tell 15-year-old Mike Wenger? What would one piece of advice maybe that you would give your 15-year-old self?
The devil's a liar. And I say that. I've said that before. I'll probably keep saying that. He leads us down the road. It all looks great. Brandon Lake's song, the world, I thought the world had something to offer that I was missing, and my daddy told me not to chase it, and I did, and that's what I did. Don't be fooled. You see the ads and you see how great it looks to do all these different things, the devil isn't showing you the broken homes, the broken marriages, the kids that are left behind in divorce situations, or children without parents because of drug overdoses and things like that. It looks really neat, but he doesn't show you the ugly backside. And I know that it's counter to what the world is telling us. And they're telling us to, grab all the gusto we can. You only live once, right? And it's true. We only live once. Why don't we live it for God? Why don't we live it for something that will last through eternity, where we will enjoy eternity, where we'll be in the presence of God forever and ever? That's what we need to focus on. And the more we can pull our children or anyone into that vision of how great it is to serve God, the rewards that are there. Yes, it's challenging. Yes, it's hard. But for eternity, we will be with Jesus forever and ever. We'll get to worship him and be with those ones who we've spent time with, and those that we've never seen before, with millions and millions of Christians together. The future, we need to focus on the future that is really important, and that's our eternal destiny. And I have a example that I use with a rope and a piece of colored bit at the front, and the rest is eternity. And I said, we focus so much on these few years that we're here on earth. And some of us focus on those last 10 years so much while we're here to possibly retire and go do whatever it is. But we forget about how many eternity is out there, and we never plan for that. I want to focus people on planning for eternity and doing what really matters. As the Bible says, where moth and rust doesn't corrupt, thieves can't break in and steal. This is the stuff that lasts. This is the good stuff.
Pastor Mike Wenger of Lewisburg Bible Church, Lewisburg, Pennsylvania, may be an encouragement to you. Just continue to do what you're doing. You can hear God's love and excitement in your voice, and I'm sure your congregation hears that every week. So continued blessings on your calling that you've had there in Lewisburg, Pennsylvania, and we certainly appreciate the time here at Family Life on the podcast called The Calling. Thank you, Pastor Mike. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Steve.
You've been listening to episode 26 of The Calling, a Family Life original podcast. Be sure to click the subscribe button to get notified when future episodes are available. And if you think others will be encouraged by this podcast, you can share it on social media. Family Life's original podcasts, such as the Parable Podcast, Therese Talk, Every Single Journey, If That Makes Sense, 10 Minutes With, and the Rise Up Podcast can be found at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or FamilyLife.org. Family Life is listener-supported, and your faithful partnership makes ministry outreach through podcasts like this possible. Find out more at FamilyLife.org.